I would love a relationship that makes my life better than it is. I have no interest in just being in a relationship to be in a relationship. I could have a wheel of lovers. Do you know what I mean?
Okay, will you stop going into...
I'll be like, I take what I like and I leave the rest. I say, thank you and goodbye.
Stop going.
I say, thank you, sir.
You're not at a jazz bar.
I am at a jazz bar.
You're at a jazz bar.
Oh, I just spit. I'm like,
no, that's not, no man is there. Stop. That's why you're not meeting them.
that's why, no.
Because you keep going to the jazz bar.
I went to the jazz bar and I went, and a man came and I said, who are you? And he said, and I said, I don't know that language.
And that's different. I don't know that we're going to lose that. I think women, we're used to having a say in our lives. Yeah. And I don't know whether...
that's always been a thing. Modern women think that they have this new thing figured out and that women in the past didn't have a say in their lives, and it's just not true. If you pick up any history book ever, you'll find women who decided to not have kids, and that was just their prerogative. That was their choice. Now, people would tell them that having a family is important, and that was the common consensus in that time. But if they didn't want to have children, they could just opt out of having children. This whole idea that's been promoted by feminism that women were just tied up in chains and forced to have children is not true. Oftentimes, women prioritize the family because they seen the family as more important than just being a lifeless labor unit at Amazon. But that was their prerogative. They believed in family. Now modern women have been convinced, number one, by capitalists, because the feminist movement, if you actually look into it, wasn't just women with picket signs protesting. It was $1 billion propaganda that was pushed by big major corporations in order to take women out of the family and push them into the workforce, and it worked. The capitalists wanted to take women out of the family for 3 major reasons. It was to double the workforce, to stagnate wages, because if you have more people looking for the jobs, the wages, they don't have to pay as much, and 3, to grow GDP. And this is coming from a person that loves capitalism. I think that every system is flawed, but I think capitalism is one of the best ones that we found today. And I like capitalism, but one of my criticisms of capitalism is pushing women into the workforce, and women ate it up and became the good capitalists that they should be. Feminism is just capitalism with man-hating. Feminists have been taught that they're going to destroy the patriarchy by jumping into the workforce and adding to said patriarchy. In an attempt to destroy the patriarchy, they're really just destroying themselves, and the only people who are benefiting from this current system are the corporations, and it makes sense because that's how it was supposed to go in the first place. Women have always had a choice throughout history. It's just that modern women have chosen capitalism over family.
The whole movement is about sort of reharnessing us, you know, whether is it really about, and can that really work? Rights? Can that really work now that women are educated and we're being raised differently? I mean, the truth is that fathers are modernized, right? I mean, mostly they are, you know, and if you were to ask the average man, how are you raising your daughter? Because you love her. The average father that loves their daughter wants them to be excellent, you know, and they want them to have opportunity and freedom. When you think about you don't want your daughter saddle marrying some guy that chose her because he just didn't think about anything.
But this is silly, but I do agree with her that modern fathers are weak and they don't teach their daughters to be wives, and that's a big issue in modern times. I have a buddy of mine. He owns his own company, and he's owned his own company. I'm 29 now, so he's about 28, and he's owned his own company since he was 25. He was dating a woman that lived with him, and he was taking care of all of the bills and everything that she needed, but sometimes she would cook for herself and not cook for him. No, I don't think y'all understand. Let me say that again. This woman had a father who was in her life actively, and he had met her father before, and they were in good terms, and the father liked him too. But this woman would cook food in his house that he's paying for, also paying for the dates and paying to take care of anything that she needed. She would cook food in his house and not cook him anything. Do you understand how insane that is? And instead of her father stepping in and saying, this is a problem, you need to be reciprocating some value to this guy if you actually like this guy or he's going to leave you, the dad never said anything about it. So I do agree that in modern times, dads are raising their daughters up to be these same independent women, but these women are not going to get married. And then guys act surprised when their daughters are going out into the dating market and dudes are just sleeping with them and they're not committing to them. It's because you probably raised your daughter not to have have any long-term characteristics to be a wife. And that's a big issue in modern times. People don't want to admit that. But yeah, there are a lot of dads that are foregoing teaching their daughters to be good wives. And I don't know why you wouldn't teach your son how to not treat a woman. You teach your son how to treat a woman. So why not teach your daughter how to treat a man? And I think that that's just lacking in modern society. And a lot of women are getting slept with and then getting put in the friend zone or the fuck zone where they're never going to get out of that because they don't have any characteristics for a long-term relationship. I think that's a big issue.
And
who believes that her body is his choice.
Exactly. So I don't think a lot of leaders are thinking about that. You know?
Well, and they haven't been asked to, because I think it's not always a context that if it's an area that you don't have to think into.
Right.
But I think there is, it is a genuine regular thought process for me. It's one of the reasons, I mean, we've talked about this, that often I date younger men. And a lot of it is because—
Let's stop on that, folks.
Oh my God, we had a great dinner. We had a great dinner, by the way, where across the table, your husband goes, "But why?" And I said, "Well, maybe because I can."
Yes. Harish. This is what I'm saying. Tales from Tracy's.
Yeah.
It's fun.
She's 52 years old and she's bragging about getting smashed and passed by 22-year-old men. Think about the level of immaturity. 52 years old, and you're not organizing family events. You're not putting together recipes for your granddaughters to learn so that when they get a husband, they know how to maintain that man and feed their family in a healthy way that's going to give them longevity. You're not doing no family reunions. You out here getting recorded by some 22-year-old on a cell phone saying, like, look, this is the girl from Girlfriends, Tracy Ellis Ross, in my phone, and I get to call her at any time and get the cheeks. This is what you're bragging about. This is embarrassing. 52 years old. This is insane. And by the way, if a guy had this mentality about this situation, he would be told that they would be chanting for him to be locked up. If a 52-year-old man came out and said, I only date younger women, blah, 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 people would have an issue with that. But because it's her, it's no issue. And the reason why basically she's saying she's willing to date young men is because men have become, young men especially, have become so feminized that they don't have any expectations in their relationship. But it's okay, because that same feminization leads to them never committing. This is why you see marriage on the decline. So these guys, yeah, maybe they smashing Tracy Ellis Ross because she got the yams. But ain't none of these 22-year-olds looking to commit to you, and you think that it's a flex as a 52-year-old woman to be bragging about you have the attention of 22-year-olds? They'll sleep with anything as long as they can get their thing wet. That's what it's all about when you're a 22-year-old man. And with that being said, that's exactly what it is. You think that they're open and they care because they're sitting and listening, but all they doing is nodding until they get them cheeks, man. At that age, you're just doing and saying whatever it takes to sleep with women. As you get older, you start to have a little bit more standards. You start to not to be willing to lie because you value your peace more than you value coochie now. But at 22, them little boys just nodding and waving and saying whatever they need to say and listening to your sob story until they get the cheeks, and then you're never going to see them again. And even if she's talking about men in their 30s, it's the same thing. If men want to smash you, they'll sit there and nod and agree and say that they're open and they don't judge and believe in whatever you believe. But then ultimately, you're just going to end up in a zone where they just sleep with you because they realize that you have no characteristics for a long-term relationship. And this woman is 52 years old. Ain't no younger man who has a vision of starting a family going to commit to a 52-year-old woman who's not capable of having kids anymore. It's not about the man that you can attract. It's about the man you can keep as a woman. And at 52 years old, you would think that she would have some understanding of that by now. It's crazy.
Okay, Tracy tale.
But
I'm sorry.
But one of the reasons, though, that because I had to ask myself that question, I was like, what is this about?
Yeah.
Because I want a partner. And so often, and it's not just that I'm older, I'm also very embodied. I am a full, very whole person who knows myself, who is in charge of my life, and who lives a very full, just robust life. So it's not just age, it's like life experience and sort of a difference. But I had to ask myself the question, why? Why does this keep sort of coming up other than they're hot and gorgeous?
There's that.
There's that. But a lot of men my age are steeped in a toxic masculinity and have been raised in a culture where there is a particular way that a relationship looks.
Yeah.
And anything that
Oftentimes when they're talking about a particular way a relationship looks, they're looking at the feminine role. Every time and every woman you talk to, they're going to have an opinion of what the man should do. I guarantee you in her ideal man, she still wants him to protect. She still wants him to provide. She still wants him to make a decent amount of money to contribute to her lifestyle. But when they say that they have an issue with how the men look at relationships, usually they have an issue just with what the men expect in terms of reciprocation. If you're a man and you're paying all the bills in your house, in modern terms, you shouldn't expect for your woman to also do majority of the domestic labor, or you're a bad man. So usually when they're talking about gender roles that they don't want to follow or not having to follow gender roles, they're never talking about the male role. They still want you to protect and provide, just like we always have traditionally. Oftentimes they're just talking about women not having to do anything to reciprocate via the female role. And that's what she's talking about here. She's talking about men of the past used to have expectations for their women. Now men don't have expectations for what a woman should contribute to a relationship.
Starts to smell of that for me.
Yeah.
I did enough of it where I was controlled and felt like I was a possession or whatever those things were, or prize and I have no interest in it, and I will not do it again.
I'm sorry.
Yeah, you're less of a possession. You're a possession in marriage, but you're less of a possession when a 22-year-old just shoots up the club because you're 52 and you can't have children anymore. You're less of a possession in that scenario, of course.
I was going to say.
This is modern empowerment.
It's a generational thing? So it didn't matter how you met them, or is it just kind of the guys you're meeting?
That's obviously
too big of a generalization.
It's a generalization, but because I have dated men my age, there is a difference. There is an openness that occurs with a younger man around whether it's gender fluidity or not even
She's
having.
Basically saying she values young men for being more like women. And this is what they want from you, young men. This is why all of the programming tells you to be pretty much gay. They want you to behave like a woman or you're not a man. That's what they'll tell you, at least. They want young men to become women. And you have to be careful of this, even if you have a young boy in the school system, because if your young boy in the school system does not behave like a woman or a girl, meaning he's 7 years old and he can't sit still for 8 hours, they want to try to get him on drugs or try to act like he has behavioral issues, when really he's just a young boy, and they don't understand the difference. So she's basically saying she values younger men for being more feminine, essentially.
Issue with homosexuality. I mean, something as basic as that there's times where I'll be, sitting across the table from somebody and just like, what did you just say?
Yeah, what century are you?
Like, oh my God.
Where's your horse and buggy?
Yeah, like, I'm so sorry.
And your bedpan.
Yeah, for real.
Chamber pot.
Yeah, your chamber pot. Your chamber pot. Like, where I'm just like, yeah, this is not a match. Yeah. And I have long been past the age where I feel like it's my job to teach somebody or grow them up. Yeah. That I'm not interested in. So, but it's interesting. I mean, there's so many different philosophies on dating, and I have come up with mine. I
don't want to teach somebody or grow them up when you're dating 23-year-old men. You genuinely cannot make this stuff up. But Kevin Samuels had an opinion on women like Tracy Ellis Ross, and I think you guys should take a look at it because it's very interesting how he predicted these things even just years ago, man. And RIP to the GOAT. Before I play the clip, RIP to the GOAT. I wish the brother was still around so he can give his take on certain situations. But yeah, man, let me roll the clip.
Men are not selecting Tracy Ellis Ross's. Not for marriage. She can still get it. There are a lot of guys who would slay that easy. Would have no problem even being seen with her in public. But would a man that she wants do it? Let's say, imagine the man that Tracy Ellis Ross would get. Chances are he would be younger. Maybe some up-and-coming young actor. Can you imagine a woman like Tracy Ellis Ross with a 58-year-old CEO of a Fortune 50 company, an accomplishment? No, they needed a completely different woman. And that's the ultimate point. The longer you're by yourself, the less likely you are a good fit for anybody else. Tonight we were going to talk about high value versus finesse, but this is important. Here's some things, ladies. I'm going to ask you, ladies, especially you women over 35, what are you going to be willing to give up?